Evening, everyone. Thank you so much for joining us after a day at work. This is the Women in Tech Power of Community event. We are lucky enough to have people from across the world on this call, and all I can say is I hope the weather is better where you are than here in drizzly London. It does not feel like the end of May. My name is Liv and I'll be hosting tonight's event. The aim for this evening is to make sure you hear as little as possible from me and as much as possible from our panelists. Hopefully you can see all of the amazing panelists on our screen, but before I let them introduce themselves, we should probably chat very quickly about the companies and the communities that brought us to this event. Firstly, we have PyLadies. PyLadies is actually an international mentorship group for women who love to code in Python and want to become more active members of the open source community. This group was started in LA, but it has since gone global. And today we've teamed up with the ladies of PyLadies London. G-Research is Europe's leading quantitative finance and research firm, a tech company at heart that operates in the financial services industry based here in London. They use machine learning and big data to solve some of the most complex problems in finance and predict movements in financial markets. I actually work in the talent team at G-Research, hiring some of the brightest minds in software engineering. And of course, thank you to Hired, who facilitated this event, and also a lot of our rapid hiring the past few months. So thank you for hosting us. So let's give our panelists the chance to introduce themselves. Sam, do you want to go first?
Sure. So I'm Sam. I'm a manager here at G-Research. I manage a software development team called post-trade processing. My team is responsible for collecting all the data that our systems produce once we've shipped them to our customers, so that we can bring that data back into the firm and analyze it to make sure that our systems are behaving as we expect, and to allow us to make some improvements to our code. I also chair the Women in STEM affinity group at G-Research. If you haven't heard of an affinity group before, it's just another term for a diversity network. So that's it from me.
Amazing. And Chul, do you want to go next?
Yes, hi everyone. My name is Chul. I'm a lead software engineer in CogX. What we are doing is we are aggregating leadership content, and currently we are actually building a web app. It's like a TikTok for thought leadership, which is quite exciting. I can say I'm a Python and Django developer. I'm developing Django and Python since, I don't know, more than 10 years. And yeah, I'm also organizing some local events such as the London Django meetup, Django Girls Turkey, PyCon Turkey. Yes, I'm really happy to be here together. That's me.
Welcome. Tripti?
Hello everyone, I'm Tripti. I'm working in iPro. iPro is into biometric face verification technology. I'm working in iPro since 1.5 years now. Yeah, 1.5 years, but 1 year in the lockdown. But yeah, I enjoy working in tech. I enjoy working in Python. And I mostly enjoy working in startups because I can dig into all the stuff like backend and DevOps, etc. So since beginning, I am into startups, then bigger companies or banks. And yeah, that's me.
Fab. And last but not least, Annie.
Hi everyone, I'm Annie. I work with Sam at G-Research, but I work in the aggregate data team. So we are a team responsible for kind of producing aggregations of market data for use on the trading platform. So we do lots of big data stuff and also streaming technologies. And also I set up within the data development division a culture guild to kind of like drive cultural changes within the division, focusing on things like psychological safety and feedback and new joiners and things like that. So yeah, hi everyone.
Amazing. So thank you all very much for joining. The agenda today is pretty simple. So topic 1, we'll have a pretty free-flowing chat about what it's like to be a woman in technology, and we'll hear from all of our panelists about their shared and also their individual experiences. We'll also address the kind of imposter syndrome challenge that many minorities face, but we'll obviously kind of approach it from the perspective of women in technology. And then for topic 2, we'll zoom in a bit on some taboos that still exist in the workplace for women. And then we'll finish off with a Q&A from all of you attendees. So feel free to ask our panelists anything about what they've mentioned throughout the event or other questions that you've thought of in advance. We'll be moving straight onto questions at around 6:45. So if you can just submit those throughout the next half an hour while we're talking, there'll be a Q&A tab right at the bottom of your screen, hopefully. So cool, we'll move on to topic 1. And our first topic, we will chat about what it's like to be a woman in technology. So Sam, could you kick us off? What was your career path? What made you want to get into tech despite the gender imbalance?
Sure, I got the short straw. I'm going first every time. I actually remember making this decision when I was choosing my university course. So I did not narrow my possibilities when I chose my A-levels. I actually have an A-level in art as well as an A-level in maths. And I had to make the choice between doing an English degree, which was my kind of creative passion, or a science degree. And I ended up choosing science in the end purely on a career possibilities perspective, but I chose to do mathematics and chemistry. And on my first day at university, I switched from chemistry into computer science. I'd originally been quite reticent to do a computer science degree because my mother is also a software developer. And I was adamant that I wasn't going to do what she did, but technology, specifically software development, it allowed me to pick a career in something that was both analytic and a STEM subject, but was also very creative. So that's kind of the very last minute, very spontaneous thought process that put me down a career path that I'm very pleased that I chose.
Amazing. We know who our next panelist is. It's going to be Sam's mum. Fantastic. And then Tripti, would you like to go next?
Yeah, so I'm the only person in tech in my family. So my family is mostly banking family. But yeah, my interest was never in commerce or, anything else. I mostly liked tech. And in 2015, I was part of an organization who go to villages in India and promote free and open source technology. So I wasn't aware what is free and open source technology that time. And I got interest in that. I learned Python, I learned Linux. And that time, JAWS was the screen reader, which was very expensive. So the poor colleges, poor schools could not afford JAWS. And we promoted Orca, which was free and open source technology. We modified that and promoted. And since then, I got interest into technology more. That's me.
That's a great story. And then Annie?
Sure. So kind of slightly different to everyone else. I kind of was looking at what I wanted to do when I was at school. So I studied computer science at uni, but I kind of took a stab in the dark because nobody at my school had ever gone into computer science before. Nobody really knew what it was, what it did. I had to kind of like have a little investigate. And yeah, I came from a kind of very mathematical background and was interested in problem solving and that sort of thing. And someone just suggested it one day and I thought, well, yeah, why not give it a try? And like the more I kind of dug into it a bit, tried a bit of coding, yeah, decided it was a great thing to do. There were great career prospects and whatever else. So kind of went to uni having never really written a line of code before, only with the odd kind of thing that I'd tried to teach myself to pass the interview. And yeah, then graduated and started as a software engineer. So yeah, that's me.
So did you really have to kind of pursue it independently? There wasn't any obvious career advice at school about computer science?
Yeah, not particularly. There was career advice in general, but nobody had really gone down that avenue before, so they didn't really know what advice to give. It wasn't offered as a subject at school. So it was more a case of, I think it was a friend of a friend somewhere that I spoke to about it, who told me that it was a good thing to be doing at university. So I followed that advice.
Amazing. And then Chul?
Yeah, that reminded me quite old days of uni. Unlike my plan was not to actually study computer science, but I find myself in a computer science program. But I loved programming. I remember doing all-nighters even when I was the first grade, playing video games. I was getting the same joy and excitement out of my assignments. So nobody gave me that advice. I found myself by chance studying computer science, but that was a really good match for me. And my career path is quite different. I started my first position before graduating, and under 1 year, I switched to academy. I was teaching in university for 3-4 years, but I was lucky. We also had like in the UK, we had lots of startups within the computer science program, like partners. So I was also coding a lot, Django and Python. Then I was also doing my master's, but I kind of was looking for something more. So I started to work in the industry as a software engineer, become a lead engineer, and went back to academy to do my doctoral, PhD. And then in my last year in PhD, we are located in the UK. And I found myself back in the industry again, and continue. Now I'm working as a lead software developer since last 3 years. But along with all this, I also had my own startup, so I never stopped coding. But I always felt after a few years that I needed to change my focus, which helped me a lot with motivation. But to be honest, if I would be working as a software engineer since last 10 years, instead of going back to academia and coming back, I don't know if I would be still working as a software engineer, to be honest. But currently I'm very, very happy. And I think there is a big effect of the community. Since last few years, I'm quite into a part of the community, like I can say Python, PyLadies, Jungle Girls, or like, that's giving another aspect of working on software to me. And that's
Amazing.
me.
And I mean, none of you have really mentioned this, but how did the fact that there aren't that many women in technology affect your decision making? Did it make you want to go into it even more, or did it put you off slightly? What were your thoughts?
I can answer that. Maybe not quite a direct answer, but when I first moved to London, I went to the London Django meetup. I was looking for connections. I was looking for some community here in London, and I think it was a big room that day, really big room, and I was only there was another woman. It was so disappointing for me. A big room full of men, and you're the only woman other than the other one sitting over there, and that made me join the organizer team to work again, like towards building a more diverse community, so that it's welcome for like all of us, women or all the other underrepresented communities. So actually, it like in that example, it motivated me to work against it, and I think it's same in my company too. But yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So you wanted to kind of create change from within. I guess you can't really change things unless you're in them. How about you, Annie? Did it put you off, or did it make you want to go in even more?
I wouldn't say it made me want to go in anymore. I just thought, why shouldn't I? Why shouldn't I, basically? Like, just because I'm not the same gender as the majority of the people there doesn't mean that I'm any worse than them at what I'm going to do. It doesn't mean that I'm any different to them at my job. And actually, like, you kind of realizing that actually your differences are the most valuable part of who you are. If everyone was the same, you'd just come up with some really boring. You need different minds and different ideas, and like gender is a different aspect of people. So like it drove me to like be more passionate about what I do. But I think I would have always wanted to kind of join the tech industry just because I really like the programming and problem solving side of it. So yeah, it's made me want to influence and make more women join, for sure.
Sure. I mean, on that note, like, would you have any advice, or what advice would you give to a female that was considering it, but maybe was slightly put off by the gender imbalance?
It's hard because it's not like not everyone will find it easy. But I'd say that nothing's going to change until people do just start, and you've got to go through that period of like, yes, maybe you're the only woman in the team, but then if you kind of like influence other people to join, then suddenly you won't be, and suddenly be an environment where everyone is happy and confident and you have this diverse environment. But that's not going to happen unless people step up and say, right, I'm going to do this, and become confident and comfortable in that sort of environment where you are the only woman, perhaps.
Yeah, definitely. Tripti, anything to add?
For me, asking itself at this era that women in tech itself sounds negative, because we never ask men in tech, then I think we should stop asking women in tech, because we ourselves are promoting gender bias more. So we should ask ourselves as an individual rather than women. That's my opinion.
Okay, so you always take gender out of it when you make those decisions, which
exactly.
I think makes sense. How about you, Sam?
I absolutely would agree with Tripti's statement there. I don't think that I think that if you're thinking about a career in technology, don't think about whether or not there's a gender split or not a gender split. Think about whether the job works for you, and then make sure that you are in an environment that is full of allies, or where the percentage of women is higher than the market. If you're working in a proper professional work space, in terms of your day-to-day, how you feel in your job, it shouldn't matter if you're working with only men or a mix of women, because you should be treated as a professional equal. We should care about diversity on a broader spectrum in terms of how diverse teams can provide value for companies, and how diverse perspectives tend to be more innovative, for example. So I would say don't even think about whether you're a woman in tech. If you're thinking about going into tech, think about whether tech suits you, and then expect the people around you to treat you as an individual and as an equal, regardless of their gender or your gender.
Sure. Yeah, that makes perfect sense.
I would like to add more, if it's okay.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, so exactly. And I'm not saying there are no issues, but when we raise issues, we need to raise as a human, as an individual, rather than a woman. So yeah, we have those questions ahead, like the salary or whatever. So whatever the issues are, we need to raise as an individual rather than as a woman. That's my opinion.
I think a lot of women are afraid to raise things because they think that people will associate them to raising it as a woman rather than as an individual.
Yeah, but that we need to stop thinking first, and then others will do that.
Yeah, I think there are definitely some kind of good points on both sides there. I mean, there's something that we did say that we were going to address in this event, which I'm really keen to kind of move on to, which is the concept of imposter syndrome. I mean, is anyone comfortable kind of giving a definition of what that means? I'm happy to, I've got a definition ready actually. So for anyone kind of listening who's not so sure about what we're referring to, imposter syndrome refers to an internal experience of believing that you are not as competent as others perceive you to be. So it's usually kind of narrowly applied to intelligence and achievement at work, and it has links to perfectionism and kind of the social context. So it's feeling like you can't believe that you're here, like you don't think you deserve it, and you almost feel like you've tricked everyone into getting into the position that you're in. So Chul is a lead engineer. Samantha is a manager. You know, all of you have been extremely successful in your career so far, but it's that feeling that you don't really belong. Can any of you kind of tell me about your experience with imposter syndrome, or whether you've experienced it? Let's go for Sam again.
Sure. I'm of the opinion that everybody feels imposter syndrome sometimes. I am a huge proponent of fake it till you make it. I've absolutely based the majority of my career around that. I think often I feel uncomfortable talking about generalizations in these kind of events, but as a general rule, men have a tendency to speak up more, to speak well about themselves, not to put themselves down when they talk about their achievements, and women in similar situations tend to be a lot more humble. And what that means is the gap between them can quite often grow, because you feel like you don't belong in the room, and even if the person next to you feels like they don't belong in the room, they look like they do, and that exacerbates your feelings. So I guess for me the biggest way to overcome imposter syndrome has always been to angrily defy it. I went through a period in time before I became a manager where I would deliberately pick up every ticket that came into our sprint, every piece of work that needed doing. I would go through the list and I would pick the one that I was most afraid of, until it got to a point where work wouldn't come in that I was afraid of picking up, even if it was something I'd never seen before or never worked on before. I could pick up a new ticket fearlessly because I'd solved so many others that I knew that I could handle that new situation.
Would you link that to kind of what we said in the definition about perfectionism, or do you think that you were just really trying to defy the norms?
Could you repeat the question? Sorry, I didn't hear you.
So would you link that to what we kind of said in the definition about being a perfectionist? Do you think it makes you a bit of a perfectionist at work?
I think that there was certainly a need to I felt that I needed to prove why I was allowed in the room, I recently saw a piece of motivational advice that said something like, you can't be doing your best all the time, because then it isn't your best anymore, it's your average. And realizing that you don't need to be perfect, you need to be pragmatic in order to do good work. In software development, often people don't want the perfect solution, they want the best solution given some time constraints or some resource constraints or whatever boundaries you're working in. That the perfect solution doesn't exist, because there's everyone gets the opportunity to put input in different ways. So just knowing that you can create a solution, and that asking for help is a way of solving that problem, I think is two valuable things to remember.
Yeah, definitely. Chul, anything from your side on imposter syndrome, or whether you've experienced it?
Yeah, So I really think it has something to do with role models. So when I look up or look around, I don't see many women that I can look up to. I don't know, like look how they're like the way they code, the way they communicate, the way they debate. What I have around me, like from professors to managers or to coworkers, lots of male, and yeah, they're more confident than us, but also they have a lot like. I don't think it's valid for me to say I'm equally comfortable in a room that's full of white male engineers, and a room full of women or other underrepresented groups. I remember giving a talk in PyLadies London 2 years ago. It was such a great experience. I never enjoyed a talk like that. I was the same speaker. There should be something about the audience, like the way they listen, the way they accept you. I don't know, maybe we think we will be less, we will be criticized less by other underrepresented groups, women or any other minority, than the majority group, which is like in this case males. Maybe it has something to do with that, but I always feel more comfortable when it's a diverse environment. Doesn't matter if it's my company or a study group, or like even the organization team of PyCon Turkey. Whenever we had a diverse subgroup working on a specific task, like speakers, I feel like the environment was better and we achieved better. That's my experience. Not sure if I answered it correctly.
Definitely, and there's a lot of kind of academic literature about how much better diverse teams perform. So I don't think it's even opinion anymore. I think it's actually edging towards fact. Tripti, how about you? Have you experienced imposter syndrome?
I wasn't aware of the definition until this event, so I Googled it, I read about it, and I think it's a very broad topic. And everyone, as Samantha said, everyone experiences that syndrome. But the frequency, I think, varies between individual, how they think, how they feel around everyone. So I would give an example that if I have a project or an assignment to submit, and if I do like 10 things wrong and 10 things right and 2 things wrong, and if my boss criticizes about those 2 things which went wrong rather than the 10 things which are right, So it's up to you how you take it. You take the positive side of it, or you feel bad about it and you feel this syndrome and you lack confidence. So it's up to you. It's up to your thinking. That's how I feel about the syndrome.
Yeah, that's a really good point. So it's almost, you almost take back control of it, I guess, if it's up to your way of thinking. Annie, we've talked about this already when in the preparation for this event. Obviously, you feel like you've experienced it. Is there anything that your manager or G-Research have done to support you with the kind of imposter syndrome, or anything to do with women in technology?
Yeah, so I definitely think that a big part of imposter syndrome is like the environment that you're in, like we were saying earlier, and I actually like a lot of this is quite closely tied to like psychological safety. Actually, if you have that environment where you feel comfortable to say anything, so for me, my example of where I've had it is you just have ideas that you want to say in a meeting and you don't build up confidence to say it, and then you kind of like think it through in your mind, and somebody else may say the same thing later and get credit and praise for a good idea, and it's like, well, why could I not have said that? But it's kind of creating an environment where you feel comfortable to say whatever you want, even if it may not be the best idea. Sometimes people don't say the most clever ideas. You may have a stupid idea every now and again, but like the way people react to that, the way people associate ideas, maybe taking away the ideas and taking away the person who said it, don't think about who it was, and you've got to dissociate yourself from your ideas as well. And so that sort of thing, creating an environment which we've definitely been working towards, is a big thing I've been looking at in like the culture working group we set up, as to the kind of etiquette you have in meetings and the way that you kind of, you've just got to respect each other and each other's ideas. So yeah.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. So I'm just a little bit conscious of time, and we'll probably come back to some of these issues, but if we do move on to topic 2, which is addressing the taboo. Navigating taboos in the workplace as a female can be pretty tricky. I'd like to kind of look at career progression and salary negotiations, really. Is anyone happy to kind of put their hand up and talk about their experience with this and how they might offer some advice to our attendees?
I can start. So I'm working in a startup, and the way it works in most of the startups that I know is there is no regular salary raises. If you are lucky, you have yearly reviews. But yeah, again, for a startup, getting up to that level, making sure you've fixed everything up to that level is not that easy. So I suggest that if you think you need to be paid more, or if you're just not happy with your salary, you should find a way to communicate it. Because my experience is I lost a lot of colleagues because they were not happy from their salaries or some other conditions, but most of the salaries, and only after they resigned, they have been offered a raise. And I mean, by that time, they already have the next job fixed, a start date. So I was really sad to see them going. I always think it's a lack of good management, but I also think it's also our responsibility as a team member to speak up our needs, because I think, I don't know, I've seen a lot of men doing this as well, but maybe it's more common in women. We think every struggle or everything that we are unhappy is quite visible, understandable, even if we don't talk about it. that I experience, that's not correct. Like if I'm unhappy, if I'm in trouble, if I'm having difficulties, or even if I just don't understand, I should speak up. Say, I don't understand. I don't understand why I'm not getting paid more. I don't understand why I don't know, this or I'm not happy about this. But another suggestion is be constructive about it. Like come up with a plan, or if you can't, ask for help. Like I have this problem. I'm unhappy about this. I have a suggestion, or like I cannot think anything out of it. Can we find a way together? And I understand not all of you might have managers to talk to, but try to find someone. Be resistant. I mean, I remember asking for a raise every month for 12 months. And it doesn't make you any less or any worse. Like I think a man can do it well. Like making something, asking for something doesn't make you less. It's you. It's what you want, and you can speak about it. Speaking about it is okay.
Yeah, okay, fantastic. I mean, clap for Chul for asking once every month for 12 months. Did you get it in the end?
No.
Okay, well, at least you tried.
But I went on a paid maternity leave.
Yeah, we should definitely talk about that in a second, actually. Sam, in the lead up to this event, you told us that you've never asked for a pay rise. Can you tell us about that? Why not? What happened in the end?
I have always worked in companies in finance where it was always considered quite taboo to negotiate your salary. Your salary conversation was like a congratulations and a handshake, and it that scenario wasn't there. But having said that, I absolutely still think that there is value in knowing your worth and being able to communicate that. So in my previous company, I wasn't in a position where I felt like I could have a salary negotiation because by the time I knew what my next year's numbers were, they were set in stone at a point where it didn't matter what I said to my manager, they were unchangeable for the next 12 months. But I did make it clear to him in advance that that I had certain expectations, and if those expectations weren't met in any way, that I would be unhappy with that. So I agree with Chel. I agree that if there is something that is going to make you unhappy or that you think would be underselling you, that you should make it known. And the scenario in that situation was that I was getting paid quite a lot under market rate, and when my new salary came in, my manager kind of said, I know this doesn't meet your expectations, and I left as a result. And I agree that you should let your expectations know in advance, but I also think that you should know that opportunity exists, that if your value isn't being realized and you're getting underpaid, if the negotiation doesn't work, be prepared to go somewhere else to get treated fairly and equally.
Yeah, I definitely agree with that. I think if you've said all of the things that you wanted to say and nothing's changed, don't be afraid to actually cut that tie. Tripti, how about you? Have you had these kind of difficult conversations?
Fortunately, I have always experienced wonderful people around me, wonderful startups, wonderful companies. So I haven't experienced these things. And yes, as both these panelists mentioned, that whenever there is issue, we must talk to our managers. then and there, and we should not, think that, yes, because I'm a woman, or, we should never assume things. Whatever we feel, we need to talk to our managers and sort these out then and there. That's my point.
Sure. Jewel, I know you put your hand up.
I want to add something. Okay, that didn't go well, but it was not my first and only time asking for a raise, and it didn't go because it was not about me or my performance. There were some other issues which is unrelated to me. So like sometimes you can ask for it and it doesn't happen. That's also okay. Also, worth mentioning another time, this like a raise isn't necessarily when you're underpaid. Like I started this position with a quite good salary, and then after a while, I felt like I'm performing better, and I asked for a raise, even though my pay was already quite higher than the market. So it's about you and your performance and how you feel. I just wanted to add you, it's not always like if you're underpaid or so. Yeah, just wanted to add that.
No,
that was a very good point. Sorry, sorry to interrupt. That was a very good point. I'm looking for reactions in Zoom to react with some smileys over for Chal. Yeah, that was a very good point. I agree with her.
Fantastic. And then I guess on a fairly similar note, but not necessarily the same, what about promotions? Like, do you all think that, is it tricky to talk about promotions? Is it tricky to ask? We've got someone called Bart who's in the attendees and has just put in the chat, I could never understand why gender would be in any way relevant in the workplace or in technology. It seemed ridiculous until my wife hit a glass ceiling in her former company ladder because boys would not let her play their game. Do you think that's a fair comment? Is that something that you've experienced? Tripti, do you want to go, or Sam?
I feel like I've hit that ceiling in some respects. I don't think I hit a glass ceiling where there were no more senior women than me, but I certainly felt like I was in a position where I couldn't progress because I'd been at the company for 3 years and it didn't matter what I did or how much responsibility I took on, I was still the grad. I think that that's quite toxic, and the only way that we would be able to change those kind of attitudes and break that ceiling is if we help each other and if we encourage each other. One woman complaining on her own is a HR conversation. A group of women forming a diversity network is something that is evidence to change things for the better. And there's all kinds of if you're in a technical company and you're talking to technical people, there's so much research out there that says that companies are better when women are promoted and they're allowed to grow, that this kind of like single like environment is detrimental not just for people and employees but the firm itself as well. So I guess that's kind of my glass ceiling answer. I really want to push women to help other women, but if you're in a position where you look up and you're the only woman on the whole floor in the whole room in the whole building, there are allies out there. And I got promoted in this company, and it happened because I found somebody who was sympathetic, that I got along with very well, who'd very recently achieved what I wanted to achieve. So I found somebody who had just made manager and had been a manager for about 2 or 3 months. And I went to them and I said, whatever you did, tell me, because I want to do it too. And if I'm honest, that person, we met fairly regularly. I asked him questions quite small scale. I asked him larger career questions, but the one piece of advice that he gave me that I really cannot stress enough is you need to tell the people that can affect that what you want. The day after he said to me, have you said to your manager, I would like to be a manager? I went back to my manager and had that conversation, and I thought that it was clear because I'd said, I want more project responsibility. I want to own things. I want to run things. I want to schedule things. I want to talk to the stakeholders. Everything that I thought a manager did, I'd found excuses to demonstrate that I had that skill set. But I never sat down to him and said, when the opportunity comes up, I want to manage a team. And after I had that conversation with my manager, he did everything within his power to make that happen for me, because he was a good manager and I was very fortunate. Some people's managers aren't like that. But unless you tell people what you want, they are a lot less motivated to help you get it. And I think that mentors and allies are really the best way to go about that.
Sure. So really your advice is to speak up and be quite candid about what it is that you want, because a man would, right?
Yeah. I mean, not all men, but certainly most of the successful ones.
Sure. Fantastic. Okay, cool. So I'm conscious we definitely want to get to your questions. Everyone, we do have a quick poll question that should pop up on your screen any second. There it is. If you would like to hear more about G-Research, or you'd like to hear more about PyLadies, or even better, if you'd like to hear more about both, then do let us know. We'll leave this up for kind of 45 seconds for you to have a little look at. Next, we will be moving on to the Q&A, as I mentioned, so get your questions in very quickly. And we've already had quite a few, so we'll pick out our favorites, and then if we want to address any others offline, we obviously can do after the event. Cool.
Before the first question, I want to second Sam's point. I mean, we should say these things out loud. I also I remember making the same sentence to my manager that I want more responsibility. I want to manage my team in a more autonomous way. So, I mean, other fellow women in tech, nothing is happening without you going for it. So, if to you it looks like all the other people around you is getting those positions or what they want, just sitting down. Maybe half of them, I don't know, but the other half is actually asking for it, going for it, doing the work that's required to like get the courage. And at that point, we should support each other a lot. I keep asking other women in my team and in my broader team if they ask for promotion, if they get a promotion, like that makes them think they have every right to talk about it. They have every right to ask about it. Yeah. Just someone else saying it out loud to them. Sometimes making up the courage. Yeah.
So you almost give them that platform to say, actually, yeah, I do want to be a manager. Thank you for asking. Cool. Okay, that sounds good. Right, so let's move on to some questions. We've had one through which I'm really keen to address. So we actually do have a few men in the attendees who have asked us, I really do want more women in my team, but I'm finding it hard to attract women because we are so male heavy. It's like the chicken or the egg problem. What would you suggest? Does anyone particularly want to take this?
I can go, because in my team, I'm the only woman among 6 guys. So I would like to suggest that, if you are a manager, if you are interviewing, you make women who you are interviewing comfortable, and encourage them to take tech as their what do you say, encourage tech to them, and um, and I think in my team, everyone is so supportive. Everyone is so, if I'm blocked, even in the lockdown, I never felt I'm alone working at home. Anyone was always ready to jump on a call and help me. And, it was always wonderful to work with my team. So I think you should make women comfortable to work with you. That's what my point is.
Sure. So more on the inclusion side than anything else.
Exactly. And if they are blocked, you need to sit with them, you need to train them, and like anyone, you need to train them and support them. That's my point.
Fab. Sam, anything on your side?
Can I confirm, Liv, is this like a recruitment question? Like how, I don't work with any women right now. How can I encourage women to join my company?
Yeah, I think it is.
This is something that we quite frequently circle back round to as part of our like diversity women in STEM group in the firm, is checking that our recruitment process is fair and equal, and making sure that we present ourselves in a way that makes us appealing to everybody. And I think that there are some really straightforward things that you can do working with whoever you're associated with for hiring in your company to make yourself more appealing to women. Some of those things are like making sure that there's no like bias, so you can have training for people's like unknown biases. There are ways that you can write job specs so that your jobs, like there's software that you can get that makes sure your job specs are like don't accidentally alienate people. One of the things that I think is really good, if you can, is even if your team does not have a woman in it, find a woman from somewhere else in the firm to do an interview when you have a female candidate. If you've got one woman in tech and you're asking her to do all your interviews, she's going to feel very tokenized. So don't do that. But if you have enough women that, like we have some teams in this firm that are all men, and they will occasionally ask myself or somebody else from my diversity team to do an interview with a woman when they have one, and just let that candidate see somebody that isn't just a man in their interview process, so that they know that that network exists even if it's not in your team.
Sure. Yeah, that makes perfect sense. And Annie, anything to add from you on this one?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, like, obviously there are a lot of teams out there that are all men, and just taking a look at your team perhaps and saying, like, are these all people that are, like, if you've got some really like overpowering characters, like make sure that it is an environment where it is kind of safe for a woman to join, or somebody of less confidence. I'm not saying it's women specifically, but make sure that it's welcoming towards a woman or somebody who's not particularly I think in banking environments where you've got lots of like strong personalities and characters. Make sure that you're making enough time for people to get their voices heard, enough and just make sure you've set up the team such that it is ready for when a woman does join, because otherwise you might not keep them.
So what you're saying is it's not, obviously the recruitment side is important and attracting people is important, but you actually need to create that environment that will then keep them happy. Yeah, that makes sense. Okay, we've probably got time for just one more question. Theodora asked, I was also wondering how becoming a mother affects your career. Supposedly you just go for 6 months on maternity and then come straight back. Chul, I know that you've recently become a mother, so do you want to take this one?
Yeah, and I want to tell the story actually. I was, before my journey, there was this debate in the company about our maternity leave policies, and I supported other women to get something out back then, not knowing or not having any plans. So by the time I go to maternity leave, we actually had a really, really good maternity leave policy. And I think like we can start answering every question if you're working with working with a good team, then everything will be smoothless. Like in my, that's what happened to me. I went on maternity leave. Actually, I last 4 or 5 months of my pregnancy, I was managing a project and was working quite a lot, and we achieved a really, really good output out of it. And at the same time, I was hiring for my role, a temporary person to take over the team. So when I left, there was someone who's going to take my duties and make sure everything goes okay. So, and like after that point, it's not your problem, it's your manager's duty to make sure everything is okay. And when you come back, I mean, of course, there is a bit of like a warm up, which was kind of 1-2 months for me. Now I have a 15 months old, and again, I'm leading 3 projects. We are working very hard. The deadline is next week, so it will be over soon, but it didn't affect like me or my performance. But yeah, you should get all the support you need from your team, and if they're not supporting you, then maybe you should work with another team that will support you, because like you can stay and try to improve. That's always the first thing you should do. But if things are not improving, maybe you should find someone, some team, some manager that's supporting you better. So it's important not to, don't forget, that's my advice, don't forget, an interview is not a meeting that you are being interviewed. You are also interviewing the company you're going to work. So like, be smart, ask enough questions, try to understand, because there are usually leads during the interview.
Yeah.
If you can be happy in that team, be happily go to maternity leave, or be happily ask for a raise, or be happily ask for more diversity or not, they will give you hints on that in the interview.
I'd also bring you back to the question we had before around attracting females. I think as an all-male team, from my kind of HR perspective, you sometimes forget that females need to have kind of equal benefits as well, and have a look at the benefits that you're offering around maternity, because that is just as important as offering free fruit and snacks, maybe a bit more important than offering free fruit and snacks. So if you don't have those kind of basics down, then it would be very hard to attract females into the team. I'm conscious of time, so I think that's probably a really good place to finish. Thank you so much to our panelists. You've got Annie, Chul, Sam and Tripti for joining us. If you do have any follow-up questions, we didn't get the chance to answer all of them, so feel free to connect with any of us on LinkedIn and we can have a conversation directly. There's a slide here showing all of our names, and we'd love to continue the conversation. You may have also seen that there's a QR code on the screen here. We would really love your feedback, so please let us know what you thought of the event and maybe even some ideas for the next one. Thank you, everyone. Have a great rest of your day. Thanks, panelists.
Yeah, thank you.
Thank you.
Everyone.